Welcome back to Spotlight Bird on Space 101.1 FM. This is the second part of a two-part series where I interviewed Dr. Rebecca Hartley about bush tits. If you missed the first part, you can find a recording on the Seattle Bird podcast. I'd recommend listening back to that. This week, the long-awaited nest information. First, a really quick refresher on the birds. They are little fluffy gray birds. Okay, now that you remember what we're talking about, my interview with Dr. Hartley. But what was it that got you interested in bush tits?
It was finding a nest. Because the nests are very cool. And I work at Seattle University, and we actually found a couple nests on the campus in the spring of 2017 ish, something like that. And so that really got me interested in helping some students do some behavioral research there. This work was just started like 6 years ago, and it's sort of ongoing because we don't find very many nests. Well, we find about a dozen nests each year, but about half of them get wrecked. Sadly, I think it's the crows that go after them, take them apart and eat the babies or the eggs that are in there. So that's really frustrating for us. And I don't know. I feel bad for the bush tits. Put all the effort in and then have it all go for nothing. But we get about 6 nests worth of data on a typical year. And so what we're doing is we're adding to the data set by collecting over multiple years. So that's ongoing. And the students, it's only undergraduates here. And so they come on when they're juniors. They just do about a year and a half of research and then they graduate. So I have kind of like a ongoing um, or a steady stream of students participating, coming and going through the project. Yeah. Once we found the bush tit nest, we did less of the sound recording and we got into actual video recording so we could see the birds coming and going at the nests. And that's been really interesting because we can see what kinds of materials they're bringing while they're building the nest. We can see what kinds of food they're bringing to feed the babies inside. The birds will carry a little white blob of stuff out, which is the fecal sac to keep the nest clean. So we get to see that. And bush tits are really interesting because the iris color is different in the male and female. So most of the time when the birds exit the nest, we can see the eye color. So we're also looking at how much sort of contribution is made by the males and the females at the nest, measuring how many times they're coming per 10-minute observation period and how long they stick around in the nest during that time.
What is the difference? Do males or females do more in the nest?
It's pretty even. It seems like the males may come more often, but the females stay a little bit longer when they're there. But both are definitely participating actively in incubating the eggs and feeding the chicks.
Tell me about their nests.
Yeah, so it's a hanging structure. I estimate it's about 8 inches long, maybe 3 inches in diameter, and attached at the top to a branch of a tree or a shrub. And so it kind of sways in the wind a little bit. And there's a hole at the top, and the birds come and go from that little opening at the top. I think it's probably dark inside there because no light, when you look at it against the sky, you don't see any light coming through. So I think it's a fairly solid wall, and the wall is made up of lots of little plant bits, so little twigs, flower parts, lots of moss, some lichen. The birds are known to collect spiderweb material and use that to kind of hold it all together. We've also seen some nests that have what looks like, I call it fiber fill, polyester fiber fill. It's the like what they put in jackets and blankets and stuffed animals. So we see some little white fibers that appear to be synthetic fibers also in those nests. But they're fascinating structures and they stretch out, jiggle around when the birds are coming and going through that little opening at the top.
You said they're sometimes made out of spider silk. How do they get the spider silk?
Well, they collect it by. One time I saw a couple of bush tits on a lamppost, and they were moving around in such a way that they were actually, it seemed like they were collecting the spider webs on the lamppost, or sometimes I've seen hummingbirds up running along or flying along the inside of window frames on the outside of a building, and they're collecting spider webs for their nests as well. But I think they're spiders in the trees around. And we had one video where it looked like the birds were taking it looked like a cocoon type of structure. And I thought, well, that's probably got some kind of silky, stretchy fibers in it as well. So they may be using things like that also to hold it all together. I guess one other thing I could say is that inside of the nest, we've had a few that have fallen down, and we've examined them. This would be like the next spring, they fall out of the tree or something. And one had some fluff in it, and I think it was cattail fluff, if you're familiar with that, real soft material that appears on the cattails when they, I guess, ripen or get ready to set their seeds loose. And another one had a bunch of feathers in it. We actually counted 200 feathers inside the bottom of the bush tit nest, which would be there to make it more insulating, keep the eggs and the chicks warm and have a soft interior. So I was glad it wasn't me having to try to find 200 feathers to put into the nest. It's amazing.
So would it have been their feathers or just random bird feathers they found?
No, bird feathers they find in the environment.
Thank you for listening to our series on bush tits. Remember to find our image of the bush tit nest on the Seattle Bird Podcast Instagram page. The theme music is by Felix. Thank you to Dr. Hartley. Until next time.